So I'm out here at lovely Wildwood in Colorado, and this is my first time here, and it's an amazing place, amazing facility. I've been a big fan of the store for a long time. I go online and drool at all the guitars online, just probably like everybody else does. Always lots of really cool guitars showing up on their website, so it's really great to be here. So I'm out here today really to talk about this guitar, and probably most importantly, the PT15 I.R amplifier. This is a brand new amp that was designed in conjunction with myself and Suhr. It's been a few years in the making. It's been a real labor of love, but really fun the whole time. I drive from LA out to Lake Elsinore and get to sit there with John Suhr as he's got the amplifier open and his soldering iron. He tinkers around inside and says, which one do you like better, this resistor or that capacitor? And it's just a really fun process. With this amplifier, I'll tell the story from the beginning. A few years ago, I want to say it was probably 5-6 years ago, John took the PT100, which is my signature amp that's been out for about 10 years now in various sort of incarnations from Suhr. John had this great idea of taking the channel 2 from the PT100 and building it into this kind of little like kit bread box thing to try out a new 6v6 power amp that he was excited about checking out. It was a 15 watt kind of small power amp, and he made the front end of the PT100 essentially to this little 15 watt thing in this cool little kind of, bread box looking amp that he made. And we plugged it into the cabinet. It just sounded unbelievable. Like right out of the gate, the thing was just like roaring sounding. It sounded like a big amp. It didn't sound like a little, what I think of traditionally as like a low watt or 15 watt amp. It just had this bold thing going on. And it was really juicy feeling because of the low wattage allows you to kind of experiment with, getting into the clipping the power tube stage essentially. So anyways, I just loved it. And a number of years went by since then, maybe 6 years, something like that. And we thought we got to do this at some point, make this into a real amplifier that's available for folks out on the market. And we decided, why don't we do the full 3-channel thing? And in this time also, Suhr brought out their Reactive Load, which is kind of industry standard load box that allows you to take an amplifier down to line level and take a line out and run it into either a recording interface or PA and add some speaker simulation, get a great cranked up amp tone, but you don't necessarily need speakers at that point. So we figured out a way to combine the Reactive Load into the 15 watt amplifier with the full 3 channels. Also in this time, impulse responses became really popular. Now for those that don't know what an impulse response is, you can think of it like this. It's basically digital speaker simulation. It's kind of like taking a picture of what a microphone or maybe 2 microphones look like on a speaker in a cabinet. And you can kind of take that sound and essentially bottle it and then put it in a little digital file. And it's unbelievably realistic. For me, just in my personal opinion, it kind of is on a whole nother level when you compare it to analog speaker simulation. It's just so detailed and accurate. So with the PT15, what you've got is a killer 3-channel all-tube amp mated with the Suhr Reactive Load that allows you to load the amp down to line level. You can use it with a cab or without the cab. And then you've got the impulse responses, which adds the speaker simulation. You can take the line right out of the amplifier and go straight into a recording interface or say right into a PA system and get a killer mic'd up awesome tone. So there's 16 slots in the PT15 I.R for the impulse responses. And that means you can have up to 16 different cabinet sounds. So if you've got, say, open back 410 sounds, you maybe like for clean sounds or semi-broken up sounds, maybe open back 212 style sound with like Alnico speakers or something like that for your clean or semi-broken up. But then when you go to your dirty channels, you maybe want to get like that 412 cranked up either greenback or V30 kind of thing going. You can put all those sounds in the amplifier and you can actually store per channel which kind of impulse response you want to use. So if I flip channels on the amp right now with the channel switch button, by the way, amp comes with a 2-button foot switch. I just don't have it hooked up right now, so I'm just going to switch channels right on the front here. So I flip this button right here, the amp's going to go to channel 2 and you'll see these lights change. That means I'm going to a different impulse response. If I go here, go over channel 3, the lights change once again because I've got it programmed to go to a different IR. So this means you can have like a different cabinet sound on each channel. Now imagine going to your gig and carrying 3 speaker cabinets with you. It's not really a realistic thing for most of us. But this gives you the ability to do that in the digital impulse response world and get this great killer tone, your ideal tone, always in your in-ears or in the PA or in the monitor system. The amplifier does have a cabinet that we designed to go with it. It's a 212 cabinet that sounds really awesome. It's got a greenback speaker up in the top left, and in the bottom right side of the cabinet, there's actually a V30 down there. We tried a whole bunch of different speaker combos, and we just love the way that these two speakers sound in this cab. So it does have a cab. Cab's totally optional though. It's the first amplifier that you can actually just yank the speaker cable right out of on the back and still play. Now I've got the line out running to an interface over here. I'm going to show you this in a minute. And this is now loaded down. Amplifier's not going to be damaged or anything like that if you don't plug it into a speaker cabinet, because you're safe with the Suhr Reactive Load. There's actually two jacks on the back of the amplifier to plug in a speaker cabinet. The bottom one, surrounded by a red ring, will disable the internal reactive load and just pass all the signal through to the cabinet. If you go to the top jack though, what actually happens is the reactive load is in parallel then, and it effectively drops the amplifier volume by about -3 dB, and it kind of brings it down to the equivalent of a 7-watt amp. So you've got actually kind of a built-in attenuator there if you do want to use a cabinet and you want to get some cranked up tone, but maybe it's just a little too loud for a gigging situation or rehearsal situation or playing at home. You can actually attenuate down -3 dB, which is a pretty noticeable drop. So when you heard me playing at the beginning of the video, I was playing through channel 1 on the amplifier, and the channel 1's actually was originally derived from the Suhr Bella amp, which is kind of hot-rodded American tone. It's John's perfect sort of version of, you know, what the old wonderful amps from the 60s sounded like from Southern California. But you can crank it up and drive it pretty good, and it doesn't flub out like a lot of those amp designs did. And that's something that I really loved about the Bella amplifier. So we just incorporated into this one as well. The fun thing about the amp is because it's 15 watts and also because it has a reactive load and you don't have to use a cabinet at all, is it's pretty easy to experiment with pushing the power section and getting some really cool grindy tones going. So you can get everything from sparkling cleans through to grinded up, kind of brawny, dirty tones out of channel 1. Channel 1's got a bright switch on it too, as do the other two channels. So one bright switch for each individual channel allows you to really fine-tune the brightness of the amp. So I'm switching over to channel 2 now. Let's check out the dirty sounds of the amp. So I've got the gain on about, I don't know, 3.5, something like that on channel 2. And this is going to give me a great cranked up sort of 70s meets 80s British tone. there's a 3-band EQ on the amp, and you'll notice I got everything just about set on 5 right now. The really wonderful way that John tweaked in the amplifier and got all the values for the components and stuff like that all dialed in, so you could just set everything just about on 5 and get this killer tone. And then you kind of tweak, I find, from about 4 till 6 on each control, just 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock, and you'll find your sound in there somewhere. So once again, each channel has a bright switch, and I have the bright off on channel 2 right now. So I'm going to turn it on for you now. You can hear what that sounds like. Get a little bit more sizzle on the top end. Once again, with the bright off and on. Now I haven't had the gain past 6 yet on the amp. I'm going to go over to channel 3 here. We'll turn the gain up to about, let's say 3/4 the way up. Okay, let's talk about the IRs for a minute, or impulse responses. So this is the speaker simulation. What you're going to hear now is just the IRs. Once again, there's 16 slots for IRs in the amp, and there's 4 banks, 4 presets per bank. So right now I'm on bank 4 and impulse response number 1, and I really like this one personally for clean sounds for channel 1. This is actually the Suhr Bella open back 112 cabinet with a Celestion V-type speaker in it. Okay, if you like that sound, but you think, I wish it was a little bit warmer, all I got to do is go to impulse response number 2 in bank 4. This is a slightly warmer version of the same thing. It's a blend I made myself of the Celestion impulse responses. Okay, number 3, I believe this is Alnico's in a 212. And number 4, this is going to be the Suhr Hedgehog cabinet, which has 65s in it, and it's an open back cab. Okay, so now on channel 2 of the amplifier, what loads up as my default here is actually my favorite IR in the whole amp, just for me personally. It's a greenback G12M speaker in a Suhr 412 cabinet, mic'd up with an SM57 and a Royer 121 microphone. I just love this IR. It's just classic greenback tone. If you like that, but you think, hey, that's maybe a little bit bright for me, You can, of course, turn off the bright channel on the amp. There's all kinds of ways to tweak it, but we could also just go to this IR, which is bank number 1, IR number 2. This is a slightly warmer, smoother blend that I made of the Celestion IRs of the same 412 cab. Okay, number 3 in the same bank, this is going to be Celestion's 57 Balanced. This is a brighter, edgier sound, which can be cool if you're playing like 80s hard rock or something like that. It's got a lot of sizzle on the top end. Might even sound better with the bright switch off on channel 2. Okay, there's just all kinds of ways you can experiment. And going to IR number 4 in that same bank, this is now going to be a dark 57. So this is like if you got the speaker there and you take the 57 mic and you move it out towards the edge of the speaker a little bit further, and it just darkens up the sound. Okay, and if I go over to my channel 3 now I'm actually loading up a bank of V30s. So V30 speakers are in bank 2, and all the IRs are of a few different ones. What I did actually in the 4th IR in bank 2 is I blended a greenback cab in there a little bit. So it's like a combination of a V30 412 and a greenback 412. This is one of my custom blends. Sort of rounding out a couple other things on the amp, you can actually defeat the IRs on the amplifier, because if you want to use maybe different speaker simulation in your computer, maybe you want to give yourself options in the mix or something, you don't want to commit to like recording the IR if you're tracking a song. It's just a simple switch on the back. It allows you to defeat the IR. I'll show you what that sounds like. It's the worst sound ever. That's what your amp sounds like with no speaker cabinet. So it's just a simple switch on the back, but that's going to allow you to use speaker simulation of your choice, you know, outside of the amplifier if that's what you want to do. There's a great buffered effects loop in the amplifier, so you're going to be able to use everything from pedals through to line level effects with the amp, no problem. It'll drive relatively long cable lengths with no worries. So if you've got a delay or something out on your pedal board and you want to run a couple cables back and forth to the amp, no problem. John does the best effects loops in the business. Other than that, over here on the right side of the amplifier, we got a master presence and overall master volume control. What I recommend people do is kind of set up the channels to get them all balanced in level using the masters on each channel. Anywhere from about 2 to 4 on these masters is usually pretty good. And then you set your overall master volume using this master over here. And for those that, it might be effective actually just show this really quick. Those might have questions about using it at home through a cabinet and what it'll sound like at low volumes. Like, does the master kill the sound of the amp? It's a killer master. It sounds great. It doesn't hurt the sound of the amplifier at all, I don't think. Of course, when you push the master up, you're going to get into driving those 6v6 tubes, and that's a really cool thing to do, but you can get a great tone at low volume. I wanted to mention too, the amp's got a built-in headphone amp right here, which is a great feature. Kevin Suhr came up with so much great stuff. That's John's son, and he's a brilliant, brilliant engineer that helped a lot with the design of the amp. His idea was to put this little headphone amp on the amp right here on the front. You can literally take like the output of a smartphone or something like that, run it into the aux in, take your headphones out, blend in some of your guitar sound with the track, and you can practice anywhere with this amplifier. So, you know, if you can imagine this, we've made an all-tube amplifier, 3 channels, that weighs 24.5 pounds, that has a built-in load and speaker simulation. You can take this thing to a hotel room or backstage. You don't need a speaker cabinet. You could sit there and practice with headphones and get a killer, great tone. And then when it comes time to go play the gig, you can walk out on stage, plop the amp down, either plug it into a cabinet or don't, plug it right into the PA, or both, whatever you want. I mean, it's a tube amp that you can use anywhere. The goal here was really to come up with a great, relatively portable, all-tube amplifier that sounds awesome, is super quick to tweak, get great sounds that you can take anywhere, and we think it's really like a competitor to all the new digital stuff that's on the market. So thanks so much to Wildwood for having me out to make this video, and just really stoked to be here. It's great to see this place, and I hope you guys will get the chance to check out the PT15 I.R in person at some point. We're just really proud of it. I'm over the moon about it, super stoked and excited, and I love it. It's my baby. All right, you guys, thanks again, Wildwood. Take it easy. See ya.